Hello, welcome to Millennial Anti-Terrorizers. And today we're going to be talking about the struggles that children go through in school and apparently with school districts covering it up. With local news happening with Richard High, the staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, and also a special victims unit detective for the Buffalo Police Department, has revealed that the Buffalo School District has been hiding and destroying evidence of the abduction of a child at their school district. So today we're going to be talking about issues that we've heard in our family or we've seen at our schools when we were in school. Uh, I know for a fact that when I was in school, there was several incidences where women or young ladies had issues, and one in particular, it was a false call, but because she said it in sixth grade, it became a big fiasco. But later in high school, they really did happen. And by then, it seemed like it was kind of kept hushed up, even though it was a more grievous offense. Beth, have you heard or seen anything like this in the school districts or when you were growing up?
I don't know about if I was growing up, but definitely I've been seeing a lot of stuff in the media, meaning more like the news and whatnot, of just negligence coming from school districts altogether. Not even just for the kids, but just down to their own safety, where there's this incident where there's these staff members at a school at the front desk, like the principal and everybody, not letting in some police officers, even though these women called in a bomb threat but didn't want the police to inspect the bomb threat itself. And I know they ended up getting in a lot of trouble and I think fired or suspended from what I know, but that was a big controversy. It's like these kids, if there's something wrong, you want to get them to safety, but they didn't allow this to happen. There was even some other incidents I saw, like I don't know specifically where, just in passing, where there's a specific school district that let almost hundreds of things go by, meaning like whether it was a rape, bullying, just assault, the kidnappings. I'll have to find that, but I just remember reading off this laundry list, and it's like they're practically ignoring these kids and not even helping them when they're calling out these issues of kidnapping. I mean, they just ignored that, like you said, but the rape, even at a young age, I see that.
Yeah. What about you, Brody? Have you seen or heard anything like that when you were growing up in school or, later in life?
Uh, so I grew up originally in Austin, Minnesota. Fairly quiet place. Um, However, there was, I mean, in between like Rochester and like Chicago and Madison, Wisconsin, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of drugs, lots of drugs. But as far as like rapes or assaults or anything like that, there was fights, but it was like automatic moved to in school suspension. And then if you got in any trouble after that, you were automatically kicked out for the whole year. So it was like two strike rule, you're out of school. And I mean, stuff still did happen, but I never seen them cover really anything up. Everything was pretty out in the open. Um, Now, with my own daughter, we've had an issue lately, and we're now in West Virginia. This place is trying to kind of sweep it underneath the rug, make it seem like it's not as big of a deal, that type of stuff. And I gotta say, we had to advocate and fight for my daughter. Um, they didn't really want to do anything except for just kind of call it two kids, doing whatever they want. And I didn't really want to. I don't really want to put too many details out here on the web or anything like that, but it it was not a good situation, and it resulted in us having to basically go down to the school. We had to request a no contact order so that these two students don't have any interaction. And then the other student actually ended up getting expelled for a 2-week period. That would have never been done, and we would have never even known if my daughter didn't tell us. Like, it was documented. She went to her teachers, she went to see the counselor, and then she had to talk to the assistant principal. And not one single person called us. And that's really, I mean, if your kid gets into a fight or sexual assault or whatever, I can't imagine the school not notifying the parents of what had happened. And that's exactly what took place here in West Virginia. So it is alarming what is going on now. Um, I'm not sure where to go with it. Uh, I don't think sending kids to like juvenile hall or that type of stuff is really effective, because there should be kind of like some kind of steps to get to that spot.
Yeah.
I think it should start off, like extreme counseling, paperwork, paper trails, and it should escalate up to juvenile or whatever. But just for them to do nothing and not even notify us that it happened, that was an eye opener for the current school system.
My my daughters are in middle school now. And they're still at a young age in 5th and 6th grade. And my daughter one of my daughters wanted to act cool. So she was pressured into stealing some money. And so she stole some money. And then to act cool, I guess nobody was really impressed on the money thing. When somebody heard she had the money, they tried to get her to buy a nicotine vape cartridge. And she didn't want it. And the reason why the kid was trying to get rid of it is because somebody else had gotten wind of it. So the school knew, and they were trying to get a hold of her and get it off of her. So by the time the school caught up with her, my daughter had it and she got caught with it. And luckily, the school contacted us on the situation. And what we had to do was, when the girls came home, we separated them and we talked to them. And yeah, we pretty much interrogated them. And then we seen what one and the other said. Last year, my daughter told us about an issue that was going on, but it'd been going on for about a month and a half. And it was a young man doing inappropriate things. And when I finally found out, I had to go down to the school district, and just like Brody, I made sure that I explained it to him. I says, I don't want the cops involved for what he's doing as a 5th grader to my daughter that's a 5th grader, but I would like a father figure to sit him down and say, hey, A, B, and C reasons why you don't mess with little girls or women in general because of these reasons. And apparently he didn't get the message, because he started calling my daughter a snitch and a rat and this and that 2 days later. And she told us. And so we told him, like, this is what you do the next time it happens. And sure enough, on Thursday, he comes over and he starts calling her a snitch and a rat. And she says, you know what? You're a pervert. And by Friday, he came by and he apologized. And what I think was going on was his older brother was in high school doing, with puberty, and he's hearing or seeing these things that his brother's doing in high school. And he wants to act cool in 5th grade. So he's in doing these things that his brother's doing. And I noticed that there wasn't a 2-parent household in this, and he didn't have a sister. And it makes me wonder, without a father figure explaining to you A, B, and C why you don't do these things, or a younger sister that you respect and you would also want to protect. I don't see, these type of children that fall out of these categories. I don't see them being respectful to girls and young women and women in general, because they didn't have the consequences explained to them, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, if the school's covering something up, one of the things was the law enforcement was involved in an issue, and the law enforcement arrested an individual after someone was trafficked at the age of 16, but it wasn't in the media. You would assume a 16-year-old being trafficked by a gang from Oakland would be in the news, like, watch your kids, but they don't want to panic or scare people. And I think that's why the Buffalo school districts uh, was keeping these facts away, that not one, but two children were actually kidnapped or abducted, attempted abduction on the school property. And that gives parents a big concern. And in doing so, the only thing the city can do is throw money at it. Like, they're not going to come up with a real solution. They're just going to throw money at the problem, and they're not really going to change anything. Um, Beth, what do you think about them just throwing money at the problem, or them just having an investigation and maybe firing somebody, but not really coming across the actual solution? What do you think of those kind of problems right there?
I think it just makes it worse for the future issues that come at hand. Like, it's always been a problem, but never to this degree. I kind of started hearing your guys' stories, and I kind of remembered, like, as I was a kid, we're curious. It doesn't even, we don't think about sex and all the stuff like how we're developed today, how we think of things. We're just, like you said, that boy didn't have any sisters. He was probably just curious. He's not thinking, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but not having that father figure explain why we shouldn't do this and all that other stuff. He doesn't know better. So I could see why that's smart to not blame the kid. Just don't get him in trouble with the law, because it's like he just needs to learn. And if he knows better by then and he keeps messing up, that's when I feel like law, or maybe even just a class. Because, say, like, for example, us, if we have alcohol problems, we got to go to AA. If we have anger issues, we have to go to whatever it is. Why are we not addressing this at this core root of when they're children? This is when their minds are seriously developing, and they're just trying to understand what life is supposed to be about. And if that's when we instill these um, I guess rules, or whatever you want to call it, just life lessons early, they're going to understand better. So if the school district itself is not going to do anything, maybe the teachers need to take some kind of accountability and set some side of curriculum apart, maybe on their downtime, explain things even on their own. But it's just, that's the flaws. You say they're throwing all this money to hide it, but it's only going to create worse problems because it's been hiding so long, to the point now kids are just doing whatever the hell they want, but we're being quiet about it.
Yeah. Brody, what do you think about the school districts just throwing money at the problems, or maybe just having an investigation, but not actually doing real things like maybe security guards or a police force there?
Yeah.
Well, I think something you said that really strikes me as being absolutely backwards and scary is them censoring the news. We all hear about like the stupid shit like Taylor Swift's, wore Converse to this place or whatever.
God. I think we lost you, Brody. Your voice.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're
There you
back.
go.
You're
There you go.
back.
Am I
We hear
back?
you. Something. Yeah. Start your story over.
Uh, fuck. Where did I leave off?
I don't know. That sounds
Censoring
like
the
it's
Uh,
breaking.
media.
There you go. That's right.
so to create any kind of real change, you need to know what the people want and what the problems are. So if the news is reporting on Taylor Swift's Converse, how is that going to help any issues that we are facing, especially when kids are getting abducted or some scandals are coming out in your local schools? I mean, they have open school board meetings for a reason. It's so that parents can voice concerns. That way, the school board can make the changes that the people actually need to have implemented, like security guards, like uh, whatever else they need to do for security measures. It seems backwards that they would want to hide that.
Right.
I open door policies to me are like priceless, and we need to be transparent, especially with the government. Um, to be able to understand what's going on in your local districts and your local government is absolutely a necessity, not just like, something that should be safeguarded to to prevent panic. Sometimes panic's okay. It
Yeah.
really is. Uh, Panic produces change, and if we don't know what needs to be changed, then how will it ever change? Beth was saying the same thing. If we're just going to hide this stuff, nothing will ever change, and it'll just keep on getting worse until a boiling point. And we don't need any of those. We don't need anything, monumental to change something. It can be small doses of reality of what's going on in your local government. So I don't know. I think more communication, more awareness, more parent involvement in school board meetings in their districts and all that stuff. I really think that'll make a huge difference.
Hey, let's pause this for a second. I got a phone call. One sec. Now being recorded.
I think you were about to talk about yourself. Brody was just finishing up.
So some of the things that we have done is one, we moved out of state of Colorado, which we did not feel was protecting the children or informing the parents. So we moved to another state where uh, two, they had armed security in one way or another. So there were guns on school premises to make sure that the children were protected. Three, they were a way to communicate with them through text messages and emails. And one of the things that our small community is able to do, so every community can do this. It's kind of like Nextdoor, the Nextdoor app or whatever that app is called, where you can do small groups close by, and they have something like that. And basically we're able to email messages like a text message to our teachers, and our teachers are able to tell us, hey, your daughter's having a bad day and this is the reason why. Now, even if they don't do it because it's not one of the good teachers, it's one of the bad teachers that don't give a shit, they're just, whatever. Then we find out through our daughters, or we find out from our daughters' friends because their friends told their parents and their parents messaged us. So that is another thing that you have to do. You have to be able to have information or way to communicate with your children's friends' parents, because they might have another story to tell and give information. And so those things help us understand. But most importantly, we ask our children every day how was their day, and then at dinner we try to ask them, hey, tell me what you learned today at school and this and that. Why are you frustrated? I could tell that you're upset. You know, um, you have to be involved, and the problem is as involved as me and Brody are to our children, they're around other children that have their parents that don't take that consideration towards their children. And because of that, our children have to suffer these consequences. And when these consequences happen, we expect action to be dealt with these children as severe as the consequences should be as severe as the actions. And I've seen time and time again, here and there, from friends and family or neighbors, something happening in the school districts, and it's not really reported. They only really report the deaths or maybe the serious injuries from a knife or a gun. And that's very concerning. Um, Beth, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Um, Something else that pops in my head is probably that I can't remember the Carmelo Angelo store, whatever The one guy that stabbed that other kid in the heart, all because they were just got in a confrontation for the kid being in the wrong tent and sitting in like their team seat. It's just like it goes back to the security thing. It's just like, yeah, it's just it should never get to that degree, especially for our kids. I mean, they're just so angry, lost control little robots right now at their ages, and they just need so much guidance. And I feel like it just falls not just on the parents, but also the school. They need to take accountability more. Maybe have a CPS office in all schools from now on, just so that
Yeah.
there's more is that the word regulatory on the kids. Sorry, I'm not good at grammar, but you get what I'm saying. That's all I had to say.
Brody, anything you wanted to say, add to that?
I think the biggest takeaway that anyone should do today is know that there's always going to be issues with any kind of institutions, no matter where. But it's literally up to us, the parents, the students, the teachers, everyone involved, to speak up and make the change. I mean, if we have no idea what problems are, we're not making progress. So as long as we all can voice our opinions, do it through a forum like school board meetings, that kind of stuff, I feel like that's about a perfect world as you can be when it comes to any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Last thing I had to say was, I would have liked to seen maybe annex police departments at the schools, so
Yeah.
the student can just walk in and file a police report and totally skip the school district.
Colleges
Law
have that.
enforcement there to prevent school shootings. Um, Law enforcement there to make sure that other kids wise up, like, oh, police are there. They did arrest Jimmy last year for whatever he did. Um, these type of things could be prevented if they take a little bit more severe action. But I feel like because a few parents or a lot of parents don't want guns around the children, the it's making more problems than solving problems in a lot of situations. And like Brody was saying, no matter what we can do, these problems are going to come up, and we can just be there to listen and comfort our children and have some type of plan of action, maybe to go about it, depending on the scenario. Anyways, this is Millennial Anti-Terrorizers. Thanks for watching, and